Chancellor Merz, who said during the first attack on Iran that Israel is doing our dirty work, has now said that Iran's days are numbered. It may be weeks, but this regime has no legitimacy whatsoever to govern. So I think
Wow.
the Europeans are jumping on board on this fully. But
Wow.
Trump also said that now is time. Now it's time for Iran to make a deal, otherwise we'll hit them hard. What deal is he referring to? We're still back at the nuclear deal, because this seems very dishonest at this point, because they've already been very open that the goal is regime change, and any regime change, you wouldn't be able to get a unifying opposition. So this is the destruction of Iran we're looking at, which is
That is correct. There is no interest in any negotiated deal, because negotiated deals have been available for more than a dozen years. And whenever they've been reached, the United States has ripped them up. And Israel has been the chief proponent of ripping up any negotiated deal. And since Trump works for Israel, there's absolutely no intention of any negotiation at all. They are out to overthrow the government. Shame on Merz, but again, it's just so typical. I had not seen that statement before. The thuggishness of Europe shouldn't surprise me, but it always disappoints me. The only attempt ever to rally to principles, it seems, is when Europe's own narrow interest is on the line. Then suddenly it's not right for the U.S. to attack Denmark by claiming Greenland. That would be an abuse. But overthrowing the government of Iran, that is fine. I think it's worth us spending just a few minutes on the propaganda that is now flowing freely in the New York Times, the Washington Post, I'm sure in the European media, that the economic collapse shows the corruption and mismanagement of the Iranian regime, and why they're not fit to govern, like Chancellor Merz has just declared, as you read to me. And people should understand this is part of the game. And the game is absolutely vulgar, but it is perfectly understandable if one directs just a little bit of attention to it. And it happens that our Treasury Secretary in the United States, Scott Bessent, laid it out very clearly and explicitly in Davos, almost in a cartoonish way. And if I may, Glenn, just to read his words so that people understand what has been happening during the past year. He's asked by the interviewer, what do you want to say about sanctions? Something else you've been working on, of course. What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? And Bessent says, okay, there are Treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believed the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran. And it's worked, because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the streets. So this is economic statecraft. No shots fired, and things are moving in a very positive way here. It's an amazing statement. So amazing that the New York Times didn't dare to report it. The Washington Post didn't dare to report it. Because what Bessent is explaining is that the United States has used its financial means to bring down the government, to bring people out on the streets, to bring mass unrest. And things are going in a very positive way, says Mr. Bessent. So the vulgarity of it is so stunning that, of course, the mainstream media won't even touch it. But what they do is run stories every day about the mismanagement, the corruption, the economic collapse, the suffering of the people, without saying that our Treasury Secretary explained that's the American game. And I have spoken to people recently explaining, yes, they cannot get paid for their oil because of what the United States is doing. The payments don't come. Everybody's under sanctions. Everybody's under threat. Every bank in the world refuses to handle any of the transactions. That's the U.S. weaponization of the dollar. And the design is to create chaos, to create bank failures, to create a currency collapse, to bring people out on the streets. As Besant says, this is why the people took to the streets. So he even gives the chain of causation and blesses it. It's moving in a very positive way here. Okay, if this is the kind of world that people think we're going to be safe in, I'm sorry to say they're going to find that this is the absolute route to annihilation and disaster. This is pure gangsterism against every principle. And why Merz is a party to the gangsterism, or the Europeans are a party to the gangsterism, beats the hell out of me, I have to say, because they were also parties to the negotiation of the JCPOA. And they watched how the United States killed it. So they know the truth, but they don't speak the truth.
Well, this is the overwhelming propaganda, because you can have all evidence in front of you. You can have Besant sitting there as he does, say this is how we're going to destabilize, or how we did destabilize Iran. That is cause an economic problem. This will drive people to the street. You have Mike Pompeo saying, well, in the street, they're among the rioters. We have Mossad agents on, if you turn on the Israeli news, they explain that they're pumping weapons into this to fuel the violence among the riots. And, I was in a debate about what's happened in Iran. And because I didn't say that this was, a completely organic movement without any Western interference, it meant that I do not care about the suffering of Iranians, and I'm a regime apologist. So if you really care about Iranians, you will advocate for the bombing of it. I mean, this is how perverse, but this is with all wars. If you care about the Syrians, you would call for the toppling of Assad. If you care about Ukrainians, you would keep the war going forever. It's so vile.
Yes,
But
but what's interesting is that if you care for the Iranians, then you might pay attention to what Besant himself said, which is that they're out to hurt the Iranians. That's the goal, to hurt them so much that people pour out to the streets. And then when it happens, and there's violence and so forth, and much of it false flags and stoked by provocateurs and by Mossad and so forth, then Besant says it's moving in a very positive way here. By the way, he had a little smirk on his face. He could not uh, resist the smirk as he finished that last sentence. It was just an added touch of vulgarity. People should understand who Besant is, by the way. He's our Treasury Secretary. You might think that this means he knows something about the macroeconomy, or that he knows about fiscal policy, or he's a tax policy expert. No, it has nothing to do with that. He is a hedge fund operator whose claim to fame is working with George Soros to destroy the British pound more than a decade ago. And that's what brought him this in when the pound was attacked, excuse me, in the 1992, I guess it is, and that's his credentials. Here's a man who can destroy currencies. So this is so vile and flagrant that, again, it's not worth reporting.
Well, when the Treasury Secretary is a economic hitman, you should be worried, especially
Yes.
Trump's behind the wheel.